Hi guys, and welcome to the Unquendor Guitars workshop. My name is Daniel and this is another part in the video series where I'm building my Phoenix Rising guitar, a tribute to a Gibson Firebird. In previous videos I've been mainly working on the neck and the fretboard and such, and in this episode it's finally time to start working on the guitar body. I'm very excited, so let's dive straight into the video. And here is the template for the body I'm going to make, and if you haven't seen it, I made these templates in, I think, the first episode of this video series. I made these templates by hand, so if you haven't seen it, go check it out. But this is my Phoenix model, of course inspired and based on a Gibson Firebird, but with the Unquendor Guitars twist. For the top I'm going to use this lovely fine flamed maple top. And for the main body I'm going to use this one-piece Kaya body blank. Very lovely, nice weighted body blank. It's not too heavy, but it feels solid. So pretty pleased with this find, to be honest. So let's start by book matching and preparing the top. And to create the book match, of course, I have to make sure these pieces are in the correct orientation. So these two halves, these two sides, used to be stuck together, as it were, when they still were in a tree before someone took a saw and cut them apart. So these two sides are as symmetrical as you can get them. Of course there's a tiny piece missing in between, and the thickness of the saw blade is missing and the material removed when planing and sanding down these two halves, but these two pieces seem fairly symmetrical, at least as symmetrical as nature allows it to be. And by the looks of it, I don't have to do much. Usually what I do, I hunt for recognizable spots on these two tops and make sure they are spaced the same distance from the center line. But as far as I can see, there are only two very tiny marks, and I think they will disappear, and they're fairly symmetrical from the center line. So the only thing I have to do to these sides is take my shooting board and my plane and plane down these edges to get a, well, near seamless joint in between these two halves. So guys, my shooting board is clamped to my bench, and my shooting board is nothing special. It's just two pieces of MDF, one a bit wider than the other, and a little piece of wood that is square or perpendicular to this edge. And that's the only thing important. This has to be perpendicular and this edge has to be straight. Nothing special about that. Of course I have one of my planes, and the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that this top side is perpendicular to the side I want to plane. Very easy. Put my reference surface up against the fence, let it stick out just a tiny bit, and use my plane to square off this end, just like so. And now I have a new reference area or reference plane I can use to shoot or smoothen out the side of this board. Of course I'm not going to use my number 4. I'm going to use a nice and a long plane, and usually my number 7 will do the job just fine. Let's see, very shallow cut. Make it easy on yourself, guys. Use shallow passes. And usually when you have a full pass, so you get a shaving from the entire length of your top, you're pretty much there. If the top has been prepared properly by your supplier, you don't need to do much at all. So that's one. Let's see, this is the side I need to take down. And I think I'm there already. And after planing, this is just a matter of a visual inspection. See when you push these two parts together, if you don't have any gaps. And when you really tighten, push them together, any gaps disappear. I have to give them 1 or 2 passes more, just to be safe. Of course, guys, you have to make sure you've set up your plane correctly. You have to make sure your blade is parallel with the sole, and of course your plane has to be square. And there are specialized shooting planes, but you don't really need them. A long number 7 or maybe a low angle jack plane like this also works great. But I usually get the best results from my number 7. Yeah, guys, everything looks great already, and I think I could just glue things up, put them in clamps, put it aside, and it should be fine. But you know me, I like to be absolutely sure. So off camera, I'm going to double, triple, quadruple check everything and make sure everything is nice and the way I wanted it to be. And then I'll be back with you guys when it's time to glue up this top. Yeah, this is what you're looking for. Creaking sound. Yeah, seamless. I'm happy. So the sides are lovely planed, perfectly planed. And I have a near invisible joint. And I have been contemplating to maybe add orange or orange black, orange striping in the center, as well as a kind of a spine to this top. But I think it would be a bit much. So I'm not going to do that. The next step is take a pencil and make a couple of marks to indicate the alignment of the top. Of course, I can shift the top back and forth a tiny bit still. So I want to make sure it's properly aligned. I'm going to make just a couple of marks, like so. And then I'm going to take some masking tape and stick these two halves together with tape. and it helps me to glue those sides down. One at the end right here. Make sure my marks align. Pull on the tape. And that's one. One on the other side. From the opposite direction. And this is usually a good indicator of a tight joint. It's creaking, so the two pieces of wood are really rubbing together. Good stuff. So guys, I've got my clamps set up and I have my glue, some smaller clamps and some helping blocks. So it's time to apply some glue, and this is pretty straightforward. Just apply a bit of glue to the spine. At least I like to call it a spine. So, generous amount, and just spread it. And I'm using my finger today. Maybe a tiny bit more. It feels a bit dry. Now we can just open up the book again. Plenty of glue. Tighten these clamps a bit. For now, not too tight. And to help me glue down the edges and make sure they stay nice and level to one another, I have these blocks and they're prepared with some PVC tape, so the glue won't stick to it. And put a clamp down on each side. For now, not too tight, because I still want the top pieces to move when I'm going to tighten the bigger clamps. So, and if needed, you can help by pressing down the top a bit and making sure this seam is nice and level. All right, something like this. And add another clamp, and mine are a bit oversized, to be honest, but it's better to have a clamp that's too long than one that's just short. And now tighten the clamps. I think this So, and we can clean up some of the squeeze out already. Oh. It saves us a bit time later on. So with the top all clamped up, there's not much we can do except wait for the glue to fully cure in a couple of hours. But in the meantime, of course, we can start working on the main body. So guys, here's our one-piece Kaya body blank, nice quarter-sawn body blank, and because this is a one-piece, I don't have to take any joints into account to act as a center line, so I can just take my template, and I have to remind myself that I'm going to see this from the back, so I can just place my template wherever I like, and I think I'm going to use this. So be a bit conservative with the mahogany. Trace the outline. And I'm using a white pencil, so it's nice and visible. And of course I'm going to mark where the center line is going to be. So one here and one mark right there. So from now on, this is my center line for the body. And now I'm going to take this to the bandsaw and cut out the shape. So the bandsaw is still set up with a 1/4 inch blade, so I should be able to cut all these curves without any problem. So next step to do is turn on some dust extraction and cut out his body. So guys, here's the body blank fresh from the bandsaw, and I have to say I wasn't such a fan of asymmetrical body shapes, but this shape I'm really digging thus far, so I'm pretty happy. Next step is of course cleaning up the edges, and in the same go, while the template is still attached, route the control cavity. So I'm going to put my template on the body blank, see if it's all went as it's supposed to, which it did. So I can take out some masking tape and some super glue and start sticking the template to the guitar body. And I have to make sure I stick it down the right side up. And it's always a bit tricky with the control cavity there, but for the sides I can just stick it down like so, and a long strip on the other side. Like so. Make sure the center line is aligned properly. Which currently it is. And then I'm taking a pencil and make some marks where the masking tape is sticking out. So, and these marks will help me sticking down the masking tape. And of course, double check before applying some glue. Yeah, perfect. So, tiny bit of CA glue. And place the template right here. And after just a couple of seconds, the glue has set fully, and I can remove the masking tape that's sticking out underneath. At least that's the idea. Yeah, there we go. And now with the template securely attached to the body, I can take it over to the router table and start cleaning up all the edges. Yeah guys, I have my router table set up, all ready to go. I have my dust extraction hooked up. I have my Infinity Tools flush trim bit installed. There's power going to the table. Have set the router to the correct speed, so nothing left to do but fire up the router and start routing the body.
One body routed and no shenanigans, no tear out whatsoever. I'm pretty happy. So guys, the routing went without any issues, no tear out, nothing worth mentioning. So I'm left with a nice and clean outline for this guitar body. Next step, while the template is still attached, is routing the control cavity. And I'm going to start off with a tiny pattern routing bit, and I'm going to route a recess of only 2 millimeters deep to start off with, and that's the little edge eventually the control cover plate is going to rest on once the entire cavity is done. So let me start by routing that 2 millimeter deep recess. So with the recess for the cover plate routed, it's now time to route the actual cavity. It's slightly smaller than the recess I just routed, and that's because now I am going to end up with a little ledge the cover plate sits on when the guitar is done. And to create the actual cavity size, it's going to be a bit hard to explain, but I'm going to do my best. With the same template on the guitar body, I'm going to use an oversized copy ring, in this case an 18 millimeter copy ring or a guide bush, and a 4 millimeter router bit. This gives me an offset on the cutting side of the router bit of 7 millimeters, because the diameter of the 18 millimeter guide bush divided by 2 is 9, so I get a 9 millimeter radius. And because the little 4 millimeter router bit is straight in the center, I also have to deduct 2 millimeter from the radius of this 4 millimeter diameter router bit, and 9 minus 2 is 7. So if everything goes well and I run it all around the cavity, it should leave a ledge or an edge of 7 millimeters wide for the control cavity cover plate later on to sit on. So I'm going to swap this router bit out for the 4 millimeter one, set up the guide bush, and I'll be right back with you guys. So guys, everything is set up. I have my guide bush installed, 4 millimeter router bit, and I'm going to route as deep as my router bit allows. Of course, some hearing protection. And let's go. So this line is the actual size of the cavity, and this is that little ridge I was talking about where later on the control cavity cover plate sits on. And now I'm going to go to the pillar drill, use a Forstner bit to remove as much material as I can, and then use a bearing guided router bit that runs along the edge, the inside edge. We just route it and clean up the inside of the cavity. Okay guys, here we go. Yeah guys, here's our cavity drilled all the way through, and I can do this because I'm going to put on a separate top, and this is very easy to do. Only thing left to do is get rid of all these pointy bits using a sharp chisel, and then I can take it over to the router table and clean up the inside of the cavity. And I'm using a chisel to remove all these pointy bits because it's much easier to do with a good and sharp chisel, and it saves a lot of hassle with the router. And of course there's a piece of MDF underneath the cavity to protect the chisel. So just like so, and now I can take it over to the router table. Yeah guys, the batteries of my wireless mic set are empty, and I didn't have time to wait for an hour, so I'm back to using just my regular shotgun mic. But I thought, well, it's just a single clip of me cleaning up the inside of the control cavity. I have the router table set up, and it's a bit of a scary cut because the guide bearing is on the bottom where I can't see it. So it's running along this little edge. We routed with a 4mm router bit earlier in this video, and I'm going to take some shallow passes with a relatively short router bit just to get a feel for things. And yeah, it's always scary routing these inside cavities, but if I keep in mind the way I have to move my workpiece, I should be fine. So yeah, dust extraction is hooked up to the back of the table, so I have some downdraft, and here we go.
So now with the control cavity all nice and cleaned up, we can put the body aside for a moment, because in the meantime the glue for the top has set. So we can take it out of the clamps and start making the top. So all clamps and masking tape have been removed, and yeah, unfortunately there's a slight little edge right here where the boards were apparently a bit uneven during the glue up, but that can be easily fixed using a plane. And then I'm contemplating whether or not to first cut the top from this flamed maple and then run it through my drum sander, or if I should run the board as is through the drum sander. Although it's a bit wide, it should work on my drum sander, but yeah, it might be a bit wide to get the best results. But I can think about that while I'm planing down this board and make sure it's nice and flat using a plane. And I think I'm going to start with this low angle block plane. This usually works very well on this flamed maple. Yeah. Yeah, here we go. I'm using a very light cut to prevent any tear out. At least I hope I don't run into too much tear out. It's always a bit tricky. One side almost done. So guys, I have the correct tool for the job. If I'm not mistaken, a drum sander might be even invented to do a job like this, so why not use it? I'm going to feed the entire board underneath my drum sander, and because the board is slightly too wide to fit the drum sander in one go, I have to do 4 passes on each setting. So one time good side up, one bit sticking out, give it a half a turn, send the other side, flip it over, do the other side, and like so. And this should ensure that I'm getting a nice and flat, even sanded board. But before we sand the board, of course, I have to make sure the drum is nice and clean. So I'm going to turn on some dust extraction and clean the drum using this cleaning stick. I think we're good. So I'm all set up. Let's do a first pass. Turn everything on. Low sanding speed. Here we go.
Yeah guys, the top is sanded flat and to thickness, and I'm very happy with my drum sander. If you have the funds and have the space to fit a drum sander, I highly recommend getting a drum sander. It saves so much time, and yeah, it's a very useful tool to have. So if you're thinking about what tool to buy next, I can highly recommend getting a drum sander. Yeah, I've been staring at this top for a long time now, trying to decide which part to use for the actual top of this guitar, and luckily I have a negative template I can put on the top. So, and I can slide this template back and forth to decide what section I would like to use on this guitar. And I'm going to try to hide this bit of discoloration right there. So I'm going to move it as far down as possible, but also here, just off camera, there's also a spot I'm trying to avoid. So I think I'm going to do it something like this. And just to be sure, I'm going to measure from this edge to the end of the pickup cavity, approximately. And it's 120 millimeters. So 120 millimeters is right there. So most of this discoloration will indeed be hidden underneath the neck pocket and the pickup. So now I can mark the ends of the top. So now with these marks in, I'm first going to draw in a center line, because I did too good of a job making the joint almost invisible. It's very hard to see where the joint is. So first a center line, like so. And then I'm going to use the actual template for the top to draw in the outline. And I think I'm going to keep it slightly back even more, because the top is going to be slightly smaller than the actual body, and that's for the inlay top. I'm on the center line right there, center line right there, and here we go. So that's the outline of the top, and I can now take it to the bandsaw, cut it out, put the template back on, and take it over to the router table to clean up the edge. Yeah guys, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to cut this from this board, because I want to save as much of the flame maple as possible to be used as control cavity cover plates, headstock veneers, and maybe some other projects later on. So yeah, I'm going to cut this very carefully from the sheet. I think I won't be able to cut it in one pass. So I think I'm going to start with cutting this part off first, as straight as possible, and then follow the curve. Yeah, that might be the way to go. So some dust extraction and start cutting. Guys, I made a mistake. While I was cutting the top, I had a feeling something was off, but I couldn't put my head around what was off because I was sure I double checked everything like I usually do. And it was just until now that I was about to attach the template to the top, I noticed that things were off on the template, and at first I didn't really understand what was going on until I put everything on the original template, and then I noticed that the center line on the template of my guitar top is in the incorrect position. It's in the correct position at the bottom of the guitar, but at the neck position I used a wrong line as a reference for the center line. I used the line that's indicating the neck and not the center line. So as you can see, this part of the line should be right here on this curve. And it was not until I took a neck template and I started figuring out what was wrong that I noticed the mistake, that I used the side of the neck for a mark and not the actual center line. So unfortunately I have to redo the entire top, and this is not only a very costly mistake, but it also takes me another day, and that's a day that I don't have. I have to process this mistake a bit, guys. I'll be right back. So guys, over coffee I've been thinking how to fix this problem, and it is quite a problem because this is one of the templates that I couldn't mess up the center line on because it's almost impossible to get it back in the correct position. And that's because this template is dependent on it. This is the routing jig to route the cavity for the inlaid top. So these two are meant to go together. And yeah, getting this aligned, I tried it, it's nearly impossible. So I think the only solution to get the center line back on this template is to take a big gamble, route the cavity using this jig in the guitar body, and hopefully I can fit this template in it so I can draw in a new center line once this template is inside the cavity it's supposed to go in. Hopefully. So that's a big gamble, but I think that's the only way to get an accurate center line back on that template. I don't know how the mistake happened. I usually check, double and triple check myself, but yeah, mistakes can happen. And yeah, this entire build was about me dealing with mistakes and overcome the anxiety from it. So that's for me, I think, the best solution to get that center line back. And for the top, I also had this top laying around, and I've been thinking about using this top for this guitar because I really like the flames on this wood, and I can't recall what kind of species this is. I have to contact my supplier if he can recall what species this is. Usually it's written on it, but it isn't in this case. And what I also like are these big flames, because this is quarter flat sawn wood. You get these nice flames, and yeah, I'm going to try and incorporate those as good as I can. I think I have to maybe adjust the top a bit. So what I'm going to do, we've already seen me preparing a top, so I'm going to cut, plane, sand this top off camera until we're at the stage that this top is nice and flat and ready to be used again. And I'll be back with you guys once I'm going to route the cavity for the inlaid top on the main body. But yeah, first of all, I'm going to book match this top off camera so I can relax a bit, play some music while I'm working on this top. And while the glue is setting on this top, I'll be back with you guys to route the cavity into that guitar body. So yeah, I'm going to prepare this top once again, and due to the magic of video editing and YouTube, I'll be back with you guys in just a couple of seconds. So guys, the crisis with the top is averted to some extent. I book matched a new top, and that's currently in the clamps waiting for the glue to fully cure. And in the meantime, I'm going to route the cavity for that top, and to make sure my template now gets the correct center line before cutting the new top to size. So yeah, I've set up my router table already. I've added these two guide rails, and these helped the router not to tip, especially at a later stage when I'm going to use a router sled to remove all the inside material. But for now, I'm going to first route the contour, and I've set up my router with a copy ring, a small little router bit so I get the correct offset. And like I said, I'm going to do a special video one day on using copy rings and small router bits to create certain specified offsets. But to be real quick, I'm using a 3/4 inch copy ring or a guide bush with a 1/4 inch router in the center. So from the edge of the cutting edge of the router bit to the edge of the copy ring gives me also a 1/4 inch on each side. So now I'm going to run the copy ring against the fence, so this gives me a offset of exactly 1 inch. So that's the quick of it. And you can see there's a small little block attached to the base of my router, and this is a piece of MDF of similar thickness as my template, and this prevents my router from tipping over the edge when I'm routing on these very tight edges. Sometimes you can tip your router in, and this little block prevents me from accidentally tipping my router, hopefully. So without further ado, some ear protectors. I've got my dust extraction hooked up, and it's a simple shop vac right there, so I can start routing the outline for the inlay top. Here we go. Well, that didn't go according to plan, unfortunately. I lost halfway during routing. I lost confidence in myself, and unfortunately it shows. The router slid a couple of times, luckily here in the center, so once it's filled with glue and the top is in, no one will notice, and I can call it a weight relief. But guys, I shouldn't have done this tonight. I was already stressed out because of the top, and I thought I would be fine if I got everything done that I wanted to do today, because I really need to finish this guitar in time for several shows and my upcoming vacation. So I set a deadline for myself, something I shouldn't have done. And while I was routing, I was bothered by my earring protection. I don't really like earring protection. I can't hear my tools and I couldn't see what I was doing. And it is smoking hot here in the shop. You can see it, I'm sweating. And I shouldn't have done this today. Of course it is salvageable, but it doesn't look as clean as I would have liked it to be. So what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to try my scrapers and try to tidy it up a bit, and then I'm going to call it a night. So guys, I had to chill for a moment, and yeah, something that really helps me when I'm starting to have a panic attack, like just now when I saw the result of routing the cavity for the inlay top. And so yeah, today wasn't my day, so this evening I thought, well, let me at least route the cavity, but being too stressed and losing confidence ended up in making small mistakes, and those mistakes don't even matter because I can easily fill those tiny marks left by the router or put them under the top, and no one is ever going to notice they're there, but I know they're there, and I might have reacted a bit, I might have overreacted a bit. So yeah, what helps me to overcome that situation is, like I said, looking for small little victories, and one of those victories is cleaning up the shop. When your mind gets full with all kinds of stuff and worries and such, a messy shop doesn't help. So one thing that helps me to calm down is, yeah, take a broom and clean up the shop, put all the tools back where they belong, get everything nice and organized, and this helps me also to organize my thoughts, so to say. So guys, speaking of little victories, this is the new top. I just took it out of the clamps just to see how it turned out, and well, to be honest with you guys, I'm now not as bummed that the other top didn't work out, because I think this is a much more unique top. I've tapered it so that these two flames are now running over the body. There's a nice flame pattern in the center, so yeah, tomorrow morning I can run this through the drum sander and start making the other top. So put this aside. And speaking of a top, I can remove this routing template. Here is our cavity, and on hindsight it isn't that bad at all. And the thing I'm very happy about is this fit. The template fits seamless into the cavity, and in all the inlay tops I've done, there was none that fitted so good with the template. Usually I had to scrape the sides of the body or the top itself for it to fit, but the template fitting this nice in the cavity, I'm very happy, and I can now forgive myself that I've drawn the center line in wrong initially, because now I can copy the center line of this body onto the template, and tomorrow I can then copy everything onto the top and start cutting the top, and by using this template to trim the sides flush, I think the glue up will be very easy. So yeah, you can see it, it's dark outside. I'm going to call it a night, and now that I know that the top is turning out great, the cavity fits perfect, I can sleep well tonight, hopefully. So guys, like I said, I'm going to grab a drink, go to bed, and I'll see you guys in a couple of seconds. So guys, after a good night's rest, I managed to prepare another top this morning off camera. I ran the top through my drum sander and cut the shape on the bandsaw just like I did with the previous one. I was also able to get a good center line back onto the template, and that's because I could just press it into the body and mark where the center line is supposed to go. So now hopefully when I stick the template to the top and make sure the center lines are correct this time, I can take it to the router table, trim flush the edges, and then hopefully I can glue the top into the body. So yeah, off camera I'm going to use masking tape, super glue, stick these two parts together, and I see you guys at the router table. So guys, we're at the router table, template attached, center line should be perfect now, and yeah, I've set up my infinity router bit, and hopefully this gives me a perfect edge so I can just slide the top down into the body. So here we go, dust extraction of course, and here we go. So guys, I'm done routing the edges of the top, and I've removed the template. And I don't think I've mentioned what wood species this is. This is flamed alder. And most people think that alder is a dull wood type, but I think, and hopefully it catches on camera, I don't think this is a dull piece of wood at all. I really love it. So yeah, it's I think a combination not often seen. A mahogany body with a alder top. And we just witnessed the template fitting perfectly into the body cavity. And the funny thing is, when routing the top, you would expect the top to fit in just as nice, but for some reason, and I think it has to do with the tolerance between the bearing and the actual bit itself, this doesn't seem to fit. It's catching somewhere, and I noticed there was a small little ledge somewhere. So I've identified that most likely I have to remove some material right here, and I'm going to use some sandpaper to do so. And I'm going to start with a high grit this time. I'm going to start with 320 grit because I don't want to remove too much material by accident. So I'm going to very carefully do a couple of strokes to smoothen out this edge. And what I'm also going to do, I'm going to break the edge on the underside. And by hopefully creating a chamfer or a bevel at the underside, hopefully it helps me to guide in the top into the body as well. So let's see how she does right now. Okay. I need to remove a tiny bit right here. And guys, this is just identifying where the top hits the edge of the body and where you can see a gap. So for example, if there's a gap right here, that means everything has to shift that way. And if I can see that the body is already touching right here, I'm going to very carefully remove some material here. It also depends on if there's a gap right here, which there is right now. So gap right here, but here it's touching, and I can't fit it right at the bottom. That means I have to remove some material here. A bit hard to explain, but it isn't that hard. It's identifying the spots where the top wood is catching and where you have a tiny little gap, and adjust accordingly. And this can, as you can imagine, this can take some time. So I'm going to take it off camera and address all the edges until I have a nice fit, and then I'm back with you guys, because there's one thing I don't want to forget. There's a little bit of routing to do still in the body before I can glue in the top. So yeah, let me address all the edges to get a nice and clean fit, and I'll be back with you guys in just a moment. Yeah guys, I'm almost there. I said I would do this off camera, but I think you guys will like to see me struggling. Maybe. You see, it takes so little. But here is the inlaid top. Yeah, I think there's a tiny gap right here and maybe right here, but who knows. Usually when you apply some glue, the wood expands just a bit. That's why I usually struggle to glue in a top. The glue makes, of course, the wood fibers expand just a little, and then sometimes it can be very hard to get the top in. So hopefully I will get it in once it's time to get gluing, but first there's some more routing to do. So yeah guys, the last thing I wanted to route into the body before I glue in the top has to do with this. It's the Fishman rechargeable battery pack. Many of you will know that I love to use Fishman pickups and Fishman products in my guitars, and yeah, the 9-volt rechargeable battery pack is one of them. I have to say I'm not affiliated or sponsored by Fishman whatsoever, but if anyone is in contact with someone for Fishman, or maybe you're working at Fishman itself and you like what you've seen, yeah, please get in contact, because I love to do some more business with you guys, because I love the products. Yeah, back to the guitar. As you can see, I have a fairly small control cavity, and it has to fit 4 pots. the USB charging port, and also this battery. And I think there won't be enough room in the cavity to store the battery pack. So what I'm planning to do is route a little pocket just underneath the top where I can slide in the battery pack, and if it ever needs to be replaced, you can slide it out and replace it. And this way it's nice and hidden, and it doesn't take up any space in the control cavity. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to figure out where to put it, and I think I could fit it like so, because I have to make sure the wire sticks out, and the wire can reach the USB port eventually. And it can when I do it like so. And also, yeah, I can reach everything when I do it like so. And I think, I'm not sure, I think this might be the best solution, because then it will be easier to insert it underneath the top, and I can always make a tiny little latch to secure it in place if needed. So yeah, what I'm going to do right now, I think I'm going to make a template. I think it can be pretty straightforward. I think I can make a template just by cutting yeah, maybe something like this. Pretty straightforward, yeah. So I'm going to real quick make a routing template. Yeah, so I'm going to cut this with a bandsaw, and then I can route this little pocket, and I'll be right back. So yeah guys, this literally was a 5-minute template. And I can stick it down right here, and this fits nicely. So I think some masking tape. And here we go. And with the template attached, it was really a 5-minute job, guys. I'm going to take my handheld router and a very tiny pattern cutting bit with just tiny bearings and a tiny cutter. And this should allow me to cut this cavity real quick. Of course I need to set the depth, and to do so I'm going to take the actual battery pack, yeah, and put it underneath the depth stop, and just, yeah, start routing this cavity. Dust extraction hooked on, and yeah, let's go. So let's see. So now that the battery pack fits perfect in its little cavity, there's something else I want to try on this guitar, something I've always thought about doing but never actually did, and that's incorporating all the channels for the wiring. So from the control cavity to the pickup cavities to the control switch cavity, and I think if I can manage to route them in right now so they're nice and hidden underneath the top, it will save me a lot of hassle later on, that I don't have to drill those channels once everything is nice and sanded. So yeah, I'm going to, I think, let's see, the best way I think to do this, and I'm going to do this live on camera, no pressure. I'm going to align my template. A nice big clamp, like so. I'm going to take my cordless drill with a small little drill bit, and for example for the control switch I'm going to just mark where the center is. For this channel I'm going to mark the beginning in this pickup. From there to there. And from here. Ooh, and this is a tricky one. I've drawn it with a turn in it, but I don't think that's a good idea. Yeah, maybe I should create somewhat of a curve, because I have to take the post for the bridge into account. So I'm going to mark that as well. And I want to end up, this is in the cavity. So I want to end up there. Oh, and one more. In this, from here to here. And now with these holes marked in my template, I can always find the starting points and the end points of these channels if necessary. So I'm not too worried about those tiny holes inside in my template. I'm going to mark with white where all the channels need to start and stop. So I have to go from here to here, from there to there, and with a slight curve around this post from here to there. And what I think I might do is take my Dremel router instead of the big one. I'll be right back. So yeah guys, I'm now going to do a quick and dirty method with just some pieces of multiply that I can stick in place using masking tape and super glue of course, and just route those straight sections. But I've been thinking, when this works and when I'm happy with the method, I'm going to make another template, similar template to the inlaid top, but just slightly smaller, just 2 mils smaller, so it fits easy with those tiny channels routed in, so I can just use this router bit with the template in and quickly route all those little channels. But this is just a prototype, so for prototyping I'm not going to do too much effort in making a dedicated template, but if this works, I think it's fairly easy to create a bespoke template for this. But for now this should work too. Come on, so just a bit of masking tape, Bit of glue, tiniest amount. Stick this in place. And I'm going to make these channels approximately 15 millimeters deep. And together with with the top, it should be more than deep enough to reach the bottom of the pickup cavities. Once they're in, yeah, it's nice and secure. And I only need one template. It's that easy. So guys, these two channels are in, and now it's time for the curved one. So I made a quick little template, and I can stick it down right here. If I could find my glue, of course. Yeah, it's stuck in place. Remove this bit of masking tape. And I really hope that this will save me a lot of time when it comes to wiring the guitar. Make sure the body is secured, because I'm going to exert quite some force on the router to push it up against this template. Here we go. And here's our curved channel. It was much easier than expected. And now I can be sure that I don't have any interference with the post of the bridge, if everything goes according to plan, that is, of course. So I'm going to clean up the bottom a bit, and then it's time to glue in the top. Very excited. Yeah, of course, but before I'm going to glue in the top, I need to address the lining of the battery cavity. And I think I'm going to put some of this black foam rubber in here. And I think if I smear some super glue inside this cavity, I can just press this in and use the battery itself to mold the foam rubber to the cavity, and then cut away all the excess. So let's give this a try. And I'm using some thick, slow curing CA glue. Maybe contact cement would have also worked. But hey, as a guitar builder, we always have CA glue at hand, and plenty of it. So make sure everything is covered. Especially the edges. Yep. And here we go. Make sure I have it sticking out everywhere. And first. And press it in and pull it tight. And now let this cure. So, and now with the CA glue cured, hopefully I can take a scalpel blade and start cutting away the excess. So, and the nice thing about this foam rubber is that you can clean it up with some sandpaper. So I'm going to do just that, and I'll be right back with the end result. So, let's see if I can clean it up a bit, get rid of the dust. Yeah. So no rattling. Once the guitar is done, it sits nicely in place, and it's fairly easy to remove by pulling on the wires. So if for some reason this has to be replaced at one point in the guitar's life, you can. Nicely hidden underneath the top of the guitar. Now finally guys, it's time to do what we've all been waiting for, gluing the top. So yeah guys, this is it, the moment of truth. There's no going back if this doesn't go according to plan. So I'm making sure all the edges are nice and clean. There's no hidden spots I forgot to route. Because once I have put on some glue and started to press in the top, I know for a fact that because of the pressure, the glue seems to immediately set and there's no way back. If it goes in crooked, if it doesn't go all the way down and it's stuck, it's stuck. And I've broken C-clamps in the past of trying to press in the top, because it's basically a press fit and we're going to add glue. So no chance for error. But yeah, I think I'm there. I've used very thin masking tape to mask the channels and a little pocket for the battery, and hopefully I am able to remove this once the top is glued in, because there's only a tiny amount of wood underneath the edge of the tape, so I'm fairly sure I can pull it back later on, and this masking tape shouldn't hinder the glue joint whatsoever. It's so thin, I think it's thinner than the glue itself. So yeah, here we go guys. I have a lot of clamps at the ready. Here is the top. No way back, here we go. So let's first spread the glue a bit and I'm trying not to hit the edge right now. At least I'm trying. And that's so that the wood doesn't have as much time to soak up glue and expands too much. I'm first focusing on the bottom. Oh man, and it's so hot today, and it makes the glue go off in an instant. All right. The moment of truth. No, I'm too scared. I think I can remove this one. Right, here we go. This is a spot I need a clamp. And a piece of wood. Ah, come on. Yeah, here we go. Okay, okay. Let's see. I'm going to need some bigger clamps. Okay guys, I think all the edges are now pressed in sufficiently. I'm going to take a quick breath, and then I'm going to rearrange the clamps so they're more evenly spread. But for now, I'm pretty sure that the top is pressed in all the way to the bottom, at least along the edges. That's the most important part. Yeah, I'm going to rearrange the clamps and I'll be right back with you guys. So yeah, always a stressful moment gluing the top in, and especially in this heat. But yeah, I'm fairly confident the glue up went well. I had glue ups gone much worse and they also ended up perfect. But yeah, the only way to know for sure is once we start routing the pickup cavities, the neck pocket and such. That's the only time I can check whether or not the top is indeed all the way into the cavity. As seen like the millimeter protrusion I have of the binding, it should be fine, but you never know. But yeah, you might be wondering, you can check in the control cavity, but I used a off-cut template to protect the back of the body from dents from the clamp. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see tomorrow, because I'm not going to let this cure overnight, and I'll be right back with you guys to remove the clamps, and then we can have a little peek inside the cavity, and then I'm going to run the body through my drum sander once or twice to get a nice smooth end result. So guys, it's the next day, and of course the glue has fully cured by now. So it's time to remove the clamps, and yeah, let's see the end results of the effort of laying in the top. And I'm very curious Oops. So here's the body, and at first glance everything worked out as expected. I can see a tiny amount of squeeze out along the edges of the cavity, and I can see that the top has indeed pressed all the way down into its cavity. One thing I'm very curious about though is if the battery really fits nice and snug into this pocket we made. So let's give it a test. Yeah, it's really stuck in there. I was a bit afraid that it would be too loose, that I needed to create a little latch here to keep it in place, but yeah, it's really tight, stuck in there. So yeah, I'm very happy about this once again. So, and the final thing to do for this episode is clean up the top and really show the end result. And at first I had the idea of just running the body through the drum sander a couple of times, but it's noisy and it will take a while because the mahogany is protruding a bit. So I think it's easier, faster and not as noisy to use a hand plane and just plane down the mahogany a bit until I'm almost at the top, and then I'm going to pass it underneath the drum sander once or twice to really clean up the top. And this is such a lovely job to do as well with a very sharp plane. It's so satisfying. Seeing the curls, the shavings coming from the mahogany. And of course I have to be a bit careful not to create too much tear out, or preferably none at all. And yeah, I'm down to the top right there. And of course I could also use scrapers but I think a plane is even easier. And I think I mentioned this a couple of times already in this video series, that I really started to appreciate bladed tools more and more. This is an edge I have to be careful about. So, oh. So, quick and easy. And now I can take the body to the drum sander, give it a couple of passes until it's nice and flat and cleaned up, and I can show you the end result. Yeah guys, always a tricky shot to set up, having me in the same frame as my drum sander, because of the height difference of course, but I managed to do it. And I've also set up the drum sander so that the body now passes under the drum with relative ease. So I can now fire up the dust extractor, the drum and the conveyor, and let's clean up this body. Slow speed. It's taking off a little, promising. So guys, and here is our cleaned up top, and I hope it comes across on camera how absolutely stunning this top looks on this guitar. Yeah, I'm really glad that the previous top didn't work out. I'm so glad this top is in this guitar right now. And also check the fit. I'm a bit surprised myself that I managed to do this absolutely seamless fit on this guitar body shape the first time trying it. So yeah, and I'm glad you guys witnessed me doing this all with basic routers, basic templates and a couple of tools, and I don't have any fancy CNC machines or laser cutter engravers hidden somewhere in the shop. So this is hopefully a testament to what you can achieve in a fairly small shop with some minimum amount of tools. This is also unfortunately it for this week's episode. It's getting really hot, and coming week we expect to have a heat wave, so hopefully I get some routing done, because there's a lot of routing still to be done on this guitar body, starting of course with the neck pocket, pickup cavities, and maybe I'm going to create that raised section a Firebird has by lowering the two sides by just a couple of millimeters. So yeah, next episode will be most likely routing all those cavities, or I might be working on the neck. I'm not sure yet which I'm going to do first, but I hope you stay tuned and are subscribed to my channel so you get notified when I upload something new. That said, I hope you liked this video, and if you did, of course, let me know by leaving a like, leave a comment, suggestion or question in the comment section down below, and yeah, that helps YouTube to present my content to more viewers, and in the long run will help me grow my channel and make it possible to make these videos for you guys. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on this guitar body, the top and the shape, in the comment section down below, and I hope to see you all in the next video. But until then, as always, take care and bye bye.